Okay, so we're diving into mental health today, but from a bit of a different angle, right? Like everybody's talking about mental health these days. But you sent me some interesting stuff about mental hygiene. And I got to ask, is that like just another wellness buzzword or what?
It's way deeper than a buzzword. I'm glad we're going to dig into this. Mental hygiene is often seen as like less important than mental health, but honestly, it's the foundation.
So it's not just like dealing with stuff after it becomes a problem.
Exactly. One of the sources you sent, mentalhygiene.pdf, actually traces the term all the way back to the early 1900s.
Oh, wow.
Even back then, they were talking about preventing issues before they got serious.
That's fascinating. So, okay, what is mental hygiene then? In that same source, mentalhygiene.pdf, it says it's the science of maintaining mental health and preventing disorders to help people function at their full mental potential.
Yeah, that's a great place to start. But mental health and mentalhygiene.pdf, this other source, it clarifies the difference even more. It's like this mental health is the state of your well-being, how you're doing overall, but mental hygiene, that's the actual practices, the things you do to get there.
Okay, so mental hygiene is the doing part, the actions that impact our minds.
Yeah, precisely. It's like physical hygiene, right?
Yeah.
Brushing your teeth, showering, all these little things we do that add up to better overall health. Mental hygiene is kind of the same thing, but for your mind.
That actually makes it a lot clearer.
Yeah.
But why should we care so much about it? Is it really that big of a deal?
Well, it has a huge impact way beyond just, feeling good personally.
Yeah.
Mental hygiene, 2.pdf.
Yeah.
It mentions some pretty shocking stats, like 280 million people worldwide are dealing with depression. And get this, the economic burden of depression and anxiety together, it's almost $1 trillion every year.
Seriously.
Wow.
Those numbers are scary. So it's not just a personal problem, then it's affecting us globally.
Absolutely. And it's hitting young people especially hard. The source mentions that for people aged 15 to 29, suicide is the fourth leading cause of death.
Oh, wow.
That really shows how urgently we need to focus on mental hygiene early on.
That's a good point. It makes this a lot more important than just, the latest self-care trends. So if we want to start practicing good mental hygiene, where do we even begin? What's that look like practically?
Both mental health and mentalhygiene.pdf and mentalhygiene2.pdf, they have some really useful advice on that.
Great. So is it all about like meditation retreats and expensive therapy? Because let's be real, most people don't have the time or money for that.
That's a common misconception, actually. Mental hygiene starts with the basic stuff, things we tend to overlook.
Okay, like what? Give me an example.
Imagine you're running on fumes, right? Not enough sleep, bad food, stressed out all the time. How well do you think you'd handle even small challenges?
Not by, well, at all. I'd probably fall apart pretty quickly.
Exactly. And both sources, they stress how important it is to take care of those basic needs. Getting enough sleep, eating healthy foods, staying hydrated, that's crucial.
So it's about building that solid base first before we add anything else on top.
Precisely. Those basic needs, they're like the soil for a plant. Without them, nothing else can really grow. Mental hygiene, 2.pdf, also talks about regular exercise. And it's not just for your physical health. It helps clear your head, releases endorphins, reduces stress.
That makes a lot of sense. Sometimes a good workout is the only thing that helps me think straight.
Yeah.
But let's be honest, we live in a world where we're constantly told to go after our wildest dreams.
And while ambition is great, mental hygiene 2.pdf reminds us to balance that ambition with, a good dose of reality. It's not about giving up on your dreams, but setting goals that are actually achievable and accepting that setbacks happen. They're a part of life.
I love that. Because chasing some perfect version of success, that's just exhausting.
Yeah.
It leads to burnout.
Exactly. It's about knowing your limits and celebrating those small wins along the way. It's interesting how much mental hygiene ties into our emotions, right?
That's true. Our emotions affect everything we do, so learning to manage them feels like a pretty important part of keeping our minds healthy.
Oh, absolutely. And mental health and mental hygiene.pdf. It talks about having self-control when it comes to our emotions, but not like suppressing them or ignoring them.
Right. It's more about like understanding what they're telling us and then responding in a healthy way.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. It's about developing that emotional intelligence. Remember we were talking about those negative thought patterns before? Well, it's the same idea. You got to learn to recognize those patterns and then actively challenge them.
So like when you're feeling super stressed or anxious, you don't let those emotions take over.
Yeah.
You kind of step back, acknowledge them, and then think, okay, what can I do about this? What's causing me to feel this way?
That's a great way to put it. And sometimes the answer is really simple. Taking a few deep breaths, going for a walk, talking to someone you trust, those things can make a huge difference.
It's like having a mental hygiene toolkit.
Yeah.
You know? different strategies for dealing with the ups and downs of life. Speaking of tools, both sources mentioned mindfulness as a good way to manage stress and boost mental well-being.
Mindfulness is all about being present in the moment, paying attention to your thoughts and feelings, but without judging them. You're training your mind to focus on the here and now instead of dwelling on the past or worrying about the future.
It sounds like a way to declutter your mind, you know,
Ah.
letting go of all the noise and just focusing on what matters right now.
I like that analogy. It's about creating that space in your mind where you can observe your thoughts and feelings without getting carried away by them. And the more you practice mindfulness, the better you get at spotting those negative thought patterns and gently redirecting your attention.
It's like building mental muscle,
Yeah.
right? You're strengthening your ability to stay grounded even when things get tough.
You got it. And that brings us to another key aspect of mental hygiene learning, to embrace imperfection.
Oh, yeah. Letting go of that need to be perfect all the time. Mental Hygiene 2.pdf really emphasize that when they talk about managing expectations.
It's so easy to get caught up in that pursuit of perfection, especially nowadays when everyone's always showing off their best selves online.
But nobody's perfect.
Right.
And striving for something that's impossible that just sets us up to feel bad about ourselves.
Exactly. It can lead to feeling inadequate and doubting yourself. So part of good mental hygiene is giving yourself permission to be human. You're going to make mistakes. That's normal. It's about learning from them.
It's about accepting those imperfections and realizing they're part of what makes you unique.
Exactly. And embracing imperfection, it also ties into the idea of self-compassion.
Ah, being kind to yourself, right? Treating yourself with the same understanding you'd give to a good friend. We can be so hard on ourselves.
We really can. But mental hygiene means recognizing that inner critic and challenging those negative thoughts you have about yourself.
So instead of that harsh inner voice, you replace it with one that's more supportive and encouraging.
Exactly. That shift in perspective can totally change how you see yourself and what you're capable of.
It's about building that self-worth that lets you face challenges with confidence.
It's a game changer. So good mental hygiene. It's an ongoing process of self-discovery and growth. It's learning to manage your emotions, embracing imperfection, practicing mindfulness, and being kind to yourself.
It's about understanding that mental well-being is a journey, not a destination. There will be ups and downs, but with these mental hygiene tools, we can handle them better.
And ultimately create a life that feels more balanced, fulfilling, and meaningful, right?
Exactly. But we've been focusing a lot on individual practices.
Mhm.
What about the impact of our environment on mental hygiene?
You're right. It's like trying to grow a plant in bad soil. You can give it water and sunlight, but if the environment's not right, it's going to struggle.
Yeah, that's a good analogy. Mental health and mental hygiene.pdf. They talk about that too. They say it's important to have supportive environments in our schools, workplaces, and communities. Because even if you have all the best mental hygiene habits, if you're constantly surrounded by stress and negativity, it's going to wear you down.
Absolutely. And that's why it's so important to push for change at a bigger level.
Mhm.
Advocating for policies that support mental health, encouraging people to talk openly about it, creating spaces where people feel safe asking for help without feeling judged.
It's about changing how we think about mental health. Instead of ignoring it, we need to make it a priority and create a culture where it's okay to talk about our struggles and get help.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of collective mental hygiene comes in.
Collective mental hygiene. That's a new one for me, but I like it. What does that mean exactly?
Well, it's basically taking those principles of mental hygiene, self-care, mindfulness, managing expectations, and applying them on a larger scale to create a society that's mentally healthier.
So recognizing that we're all in this together and that taking care of our own mental health also helps the people around us.
Exactly. It creates a ripple effect. When we take care of ourselves, we create a more positive and supportive environment, and that spreads outwards. It can lead to a more compassionate and understanding community.
Imagine the community where people feel comfortable sharing their struggles, asking for help when they need it, and supporting each other through difficult times.
It's a powerful vision, and it's something we can all contribute to. It starts with small actions in our everyday lives.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Checking in on your friends and family, being a good listener, speaking out against the stigma surrounding mental illness, advocating for better mental health resources in your community. These things might seem small, but they can make a real difference.
It's about making mental health a priority, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. And you don't have to be a therapist to make a difference.
Exactly. Sometimes the most helpful thing you can do is just listen, offer a kind word, or be there for someone. Let them know they're not alone.
So it's bringing that same compassion and understanding we practice in our own mental hygiene to our interactions with others, creating a ripple effect of kindness and support.
You said it perfectly. So we've come full circle, haven't we? From understanding mental hygiene as an individual practice to seeing how it can create positive change in our communities and the world around us.
It's been a really interesting journey exploring all of this. We've defined mental hygiene, learned some practical tips, talked about emotional well-being, and even imagined a future where mental health is valued by everyone.
We've covered a lot of ground, but the main takeaway is that mental hygiene is an ongoing process. It's not about achieving some perfect state of mind, but making choices every day that support our mental health.
It's realizing that mental health is just as important as physical health and deserves the same care and attention. And remembering that even small steps can have a big impact over time. It's kind of crazy how much our environment can affect how we feel, even when we're doing all the right things for our own mental health.
Oh yeah, it's a huge factor. Mental health and mental hygiene.pdf really dives into that whole idea of, supportive environments, like
Yeah.
at schoolwork or even just in our communities.
So it's not enough to just focus on ourselves. We got to think bigger.
Exactly. Think about it. You could have the best mental hygiene routine in the world, but if you're surrounded by stress and negativity all the time, it's going to be tough, you know?
That makes sense.
Yeah.
It's like trying to fight an uphill battle.
Yeah.
So how do we create those supportive environments? Where do we even start?
Well, it starts with advocating for change, like pushing for policies that actually prioritize mental health, encouraging open conversations, making it okay for people to ask for help without feeling ashamed.
So we need to change the way we talk about mental health.
Mm.
Instead of pretending it's not a big deal, we need to make it a priority and create a culture where it's normal to talk about your struggles and seek help.
Exactly. And that's where this idea of collective mental hygiene comes in.
Collective mental hygiene. That's a new one. What does that mean?
It's kind of like taking those individual mental hygiene practices,
Yeah.
self-care, mindfulness, realistic expectations, and applying them to society as a whole, like creating a mentally healthier world for everybody.
So it's recognizing that we're all connected
Yeah.
and that taking care of our own mental health helps everyone around us.
Exactly. It creates a ripple effect. When we prioritize our own mental well-being, we make the environment more positive and supportive for everyone. And that can spread, leading to a more compassionate and understanding community.
I like that. A community where people feel comfortable talking about their struggles, getting help when they need it, and being there for each other when things are tough.
It's a beautiful idea, and it's definitely possible. We can all contribute to making that happen. It starts with those little everyday actions.
Like what? Give me some examples.
Checking in with your friends and family, being a good listener, speaking out against stigma, fighting for more mental health resources in your community. Those things might seem small, but they can make a big difference.
It's about making mental health a priority, not just for ourselves, but for everyone. And you don't have to be a therapist to make a difference.
You're absolutely right. Sometimes the most powerful thing you can do is just listen to someone, offer a kind word, or just be there for them. Let them know they're not alone.
It's about bringing that same compassion and understanding that we try to practice in our own lives to our interactions with other people, creating a ripple effect of kindness and support.
You said it perfectly.
Hey.
So we've come full circle, haven't we? From understanding mental hygiene as something we do for ourselves to seeing how it can actually create positive change in the world around us.
This has been a really eye-opening deep dive. We've defined mental hygiene, explored practical tips, talked about the importance of emotional well-being, and even imagined a future where mental health is valued by everyone.
And we've learned that mental hygiene is not about reaching some perfect state of mind, but it's a journey. It's about making conscious choices every single day to take care of our mental health.
It's about recognizing that mental health is just as important as physical health and deserves the same level of care and attention. And remembering that even those small steps, those little things we do each day, they can add up to make a big difference over time.
So as we wrap up, I want to leave you with one last thought. Ask yourself, what's one small change you can make today to put your mental health first? Maybe it's 5 minutes of mindfulness or calling a friend, or even just taking a few deep breaths when you're feeling overwhelmed. Remember, every act of self-care counts.
Thanks for joining us for this deep dive into mental hygiene. We hope you've learned some valuable insights and feel empowered to take better care of your mental well-being.
And until next time, take care of yourselves and remember you're not alone on this journey.